Let me explain. When I look at this cat, I see that it is a cat. And I think I understand cats. I think I know what cats look like. And so I decide, let me try to draw this cat. Now I do not understand. Because I am looking at this cat and I am marking what I see, but when I look at the paper, it doesn't quite look like what I'm seeing. But that's fine. I can just keep tweaking it until it looks more like the cat. Add a new line here, add a new line there. Okay, that looks more like it. I think I'm getting it. I keep going and then, oh. It's not a bad drawing per se. It looks like a cat. It just doesn't quite look like this cat. Okay, let me redraw this part. All right, that still looks off. What's going on? This doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. I see this shape about this big around this area, and yet when I add it to the drawing, something about the cat still feels off. I think I know why. I've been drawing for a few years, and only recently, within the last year or so, I've decided to actually study drawing. Not professionally. I've never been to art school, and I'm not currently enrolled in art school, but thankfully you don't need to be to study art. Over the years, I've seen all kinds of things about the fundamentals of art. Conceptually, I had a decent understanding of all of the elements that went into a piece of work. I knew that great artists place careful consideration into a piece's color palette, perspective, composition, and more. I understood that each element deserved its own full step in the process. But did I apply any of that knowledge to my own work? Absolutely not. For the first 5-6 years of my art journey, I had essentially just been doodling as best I could. And over the years, I could see that my drawings were getting better and better. If you put an image in front of me, I could copy it pretty well. But I couldn't make anything from my imagination. And that started to bother me. I felt like I was pretty good at drawing, but if I didn't have a photo reference, then I suddenly didn't know how to draw anymore. I had no visual library. So I spent a little time trying to fix that, and that's when I realized that all this time I was drawing, I'd never really done any proper studies. Because what I'm doing now feels very different. Each time I used to draw, I was just seeking to copy the end result. But now I try to understand. I try to understand all of the little components that make up whatever it is I'm drawing. So that was my big mistake in my approach all of these years. I was trying to just draw what I saw as a final flat 2D image rather than approaching it as a scene in 3D space. Okay, now I understand. Let's compare my approach before to what I try to do now. Before, when I began the sketch, I started with flat 2D shapes. Now, when I'm doing an underlying sketch, I try to figure out what 3D shapes make up whatever it is I'm trying to draw. I notice that when I sketch with 2D shapes, it gives me very little information to go off of. So adding depth and other features is much harder because I have less points of reference. When working with the 3D shapes, more pieces overlap and give me a better sense of curves and depth. Comparing the two drawings, I also notice that even though on the first attempts, the lines went exactly where they appear on the image, the second drawing looks better with the additional lines and curves added from the inferred 3D shapes. After doing these studies, my ability to draw has improved dramatically. But when I'm confronted with a blank page and I think, okay, let me draw a cat, I realize I still don't fully know what's going on. If I choose a pose that's close to the ones I've practiced, the results are pretty good, I think, especially when compared to my first attempts with no reference. But of course, I often want to draw things that are in poses I've never drawn them in before. So naturally, in those cases, I don't really know what goes where because I haven't properly practiced it. I'd also like to note that using reference is important. No matter how many times you've drawn a cat, for example, each cat is going to be different from the next. There are always new little things you'll pick up on the more and more you practice from different references. So it's still valuable to go back and reference from different cats at different angles and different lighting. And that'll improve your overall understanding. But that understanding also needs to be maintained, because we forget things. The goal isn't really to be able to draw anything entirely from memory. I think that using reference is important and that we should be using it. I just had noticed that I wasn't really getting much out of the drawings I was doing because I wasn't really understanding them. But now, I know how to. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider subscribing. And until next time, goodbye.